Hi, everybody. Welcome to this GoGuardian training. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through the slide deck, and then we're also going to go into GoGuardian just to show you a few more features. Just make sure you see everything and you have a good, comfortable feeling about trying out GoGuardian if you've never used it before. So let's go ahead and get started. What is GoGuardian? So in our school district, currently we have two pieces of monitoring and filtering software. So at the district level, we use something called Content Keeper, and that basically is a giant umbrella that covers all students and staff in Round Rock ISD. And essentially, Content Keeper is just a way to keep people from going to the most wildly inappropriate websites. However, it's not a foolproof filtering system because there's a lot of things that you might consider to be off task that maybe other teachers don't. So what the district has done is they've given us GoGuardian. And so where Content Keeper is the thing that at the district level, the district decides what things are blocked, you as the teacher get to use GoGuardian to add additional blocks and controls to students' Chromebooks. So let's go through some of the basic things in GoGuardian here. So to log into GoGuardian, you can make a bookmark for GoGuardian.com, but most people are going to find it's easier just to use ClassLink. And just a heads up, most of you should already have your GoGuardian icon somewhere in your ClassLink. There's mine right there. If for any reason you do not see it, click on this plus here to open up the app library. Go to staff library. And then if you type in GoGuardian, it should show up and you can just, that button will say add if you don't have it. You can go ahead and add it. Once it's on your staff library, you can just click that and go ahead and log in automatically. So once you're in GoGuardian, if you've never used GoGuardian before, you're going to show a screen that looks a little bit like mine, but yours might be different. If you've never logged in before, you won't have any classes here. So if you have no classes and you're a classroom teacher, what you're probably going to want to do is click on this button over here that says pending. When you click on pending, I don't have any pending classes because I don't have any classes set up in TAC. So what all this is going to do is GoGuardian is going to create all of your classes based off whatever your roster is in TAC. So you might have 8 or more classes sitting in here that are just going to look like big squares, kind of like these. And there's going to be a button that either says approve or accept. I can't remember which. You'll click that button, and what it'll do is it'll take that class and it will make it active. Now, active doesn't mean GoGuardian is doing anything. It just means now you can use GoGuardian with that class. Now, once you go ahead and turn your classes from pending to active, you're going to come to kind of the main splash screen here under active. I have 3 classes because I made a couple as example ones, and I'm actually a co-teacher on one. When you're on here, you've got a few basic things. Number one, at the top, it will show you any classes that are currently running for you. So up here, you see I have this test classroom. It's running with 138 minutes remaining. And then I have a language arts classroom that I'm co-teaching with, and I have another 58 minutes on there. Down here are where you actually start your classes. So let's go ahead. I'm going to pretend like this class is not running. You go back to classrooms. Okay, so if I want to start a class, it's very simple, super self-explanatory. I set what time I need the class to end. I can either do it by minutes or just give it a custom end time, say end by this time. Chat. I want to make sure everyone is aware on chat. Chat doesn't mean that the students can chat with each other. Chat just means that the students can chat with you and you can chat with the students. So that is only a two-way communication. So some teachers go, I'm not allowing chat in my classroom. Well, just know students cannot chat with each other in GoGuardian. So if you leave that on, the only thing they can do is send you, the teacher, a message. So I'm going to go ahead and click start. And when I start the class, I have this screen right here, this kind of splash page that takes me to the live classroom now. Now, for this example, I have a bunch of student accounts here. I only have 2 that are going to show up. Hopefully they show up. And when they do, we'll kind of look through what that's going to look like. While that loads, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so when we get to our individual students, we have a bunch of different options. We have their active tab display. We have tabs that are currently open, and we'll talk about what you can do with that information. So right here, you see I have this student and this student. Now, normally you'll have a real student's name up here. This is obviously just some test accounts that I have, so we're not going to worry about those names, but just know like you will be able to identify your students much more easily. If I want to see a better idea of what's on a student screen, I can always click this click to expand, and what it's going to do is it's going to open up this. What it's essentially doing is it's taking a snapshot every few seconds of their screen. It's not going to be a totally faithful video version of what they're looking at, but it's just going to give you about every 2 seconds just what's going on their screen. Now, when I click on this, I get a bunch more information. There's lots of fun little buttons I can play with down here. The main thing we're going to talk about, first of all, is if the students are using something that you do not want them to use, you have the ability to close their tabs. And it's very simple to do. If I go back to the test classroom, okay, this kid is watching a YouTube video about Roblox. He should be working on, I don't know, math right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over this little YouTube icon, and I get the option to close this tab. If I click that, the student is no longer watching that YouTube video anymore. That sounds great. And we can also close tabs down here. I see this student is on Scratch. They're probably trying to play some games. I don't want them to do that. I'm going to go ahead and click close tab on that one as well. Now that student's tab has been closed. So now you see they're running out of tabs. Now, I want to point out, just because you close a tab does not mean that the student cannot simply open up a new tab and go back. So in just a second, you'll see this student has tried to go back to YouTube. And when they do, they'll be able to watch whatever they want again. So closing tabs is a great temporary solution. It's kind of a Band-Aid. We'll talk more about blocking tabs here in a moment. Let's move, or blocking sites. Let's go ahead and move on for now. Okay, other commonly used features. These are fantastic features that give you kind of partial control over the student's devices. One is open tab. So right here I have these two students. For some reason, they're both on YouTube. I'm going to not sweat that just for a second, because maybe what I need them to do is I need them to open a new tab and go to a website that I want them to go to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say all of my students who are active, which is just only these two, but I could just be like, I only need this student to get it, right? You could just select which students you want to have. I say, they can all have it. I'm going to click next. I'll say, you know what? We all need to read the news because apparently at McDonald's, onions are poison now. I don't know. It's a crazy world. You got to keep up. So I'm going to say, hey, I need all of your Chromebooks to go to news.google.com. When I click open tab, they should both be pushed to news.google.com. And so once they get there, their tab is now open at news.google.com. Notice it did not lock them out of anything else. As a matter of fact, just like closing tabs, these kids could say, I really appreciate the suggestion, but I'm not going to be reading any news today. I'm just going to go ahead and close that tab. Now, it's kind of frustrating. The other thing you can do is, if you would like, you can lock their screens. This is probably my favorite power in GoGuardian, being able to lock their devices. So it's very simple. I go up here to lock/unlock device. I click that button. I decide which student or students I want to lock their devices for. I can even put in a custom message. How about you busted? And I click lock devices. What's going to happen is both of these students now have a lock screen. And I know you can't see their Chromebooks, but I'm looking at them right now. And it says, browsing disabled, message from your teacher, you busted. So their devices are locked. They are not able to get out of that lock until either your class period ends in GoGuardian or until you let them back on. So it's just to let them back on. You click unlock. Go over here to unlock, and then you say, you know what? You're doing a great job paying attention. I'm going to go ahead and unlock your Chromebook. You, my friend, but you might have to wait a few minutes. I'll be nice. I'll unlock yours too. Okay, so once I do that, they get their devices back, and they go back to full control. So we've talked about closing tabs. We've talked about locking and unlocking the device and opening tabs. Let's talk about scenes. So when we talk about scenes, what we're really talking about is we're talking about block lists. But for some reason, GoGuardian doesn't call it a block list. They call it a scene. It's very confusing, but that's all it is. So scenes are very powerful things in GoGuardian. They're super cool, and I'll show you how to use them and how to apply them. So let's talk about scenes. So there's two different kinds of scenes, and this is very important because they're like literal opposites. They're opposite sides of the same coin. So you've got something called the allowed websites list. Let me pull this up here in GoGuardian. So over here I have the allowed websites list. So on an allowed websites list, what that means is by default, if you make a list in here, if you make a scene, then what it's going to do is it's going to block every single website in the universe. The students will not be able to go to anything unless you give them permission. And permission is given through this list right here. So you go in and say, hey, every single website in the universe is blocked except for Schoology.com and ClassLink and whatever else, FET or, IXL. So you literally make a list of the only things the students can go use. The other option, which is your opposite option, is the blocked websites list. This one works by basically saying, hey, instead of blocking every single website in the universe, maybe what we should do is allow every single website in the universe. Kids can literally go to anything so long as Content Keeper isn't blocking it. And then you, the teacher, make your list of the websites that you want blocked. Now, when I talk to most staff, they their eyes are like, oh, this one right here, the allowed websites list sounds great. Why would anybody not use that? Because just block everything and then I'll just give them permission for what they need to do and everything else is blocked. Two things, it's a couple caveats here. If you try to make an allowed websites list, the one where you're just saying you can't go to anything except for what I let you, it's super powerful. They will be locked down and they will really struggle to go do anything else other than what you want them to do. But it's a real pain in the neck from the teacher's perspective. It can be very tricky to set up. I won't go into all the nitty gritty, but just know that you may think that when they click on the class link icon to go to Schoology, all you need to do is unblock Schoology. But there might be things called redirects where when they click on that Schoology button, it might just for like 10 milliseconds send them first to another website like clever.com, and then clever.com sends them to Schoology. Well, if you don't put clever.com on your allowed websites list, then when they try and click on that Schoology link, nothing will happen. It will be broken. So the allowed website list is very tricky to set up. And the other problem is they're very inflexible. If you generally know what websites your kids need to go to, you can set up that list. But if there was ever a time where you needed them to do something different and go to a different website, as long as that scene is running in Blocksy, they won't be able to do it unless you go in and either stop the scene, so basically remove the allowed websites list, or change the allowed websites list and add the website. Most teachers don't want to do that for all of the things you need to send them to on different days. If you go with the blocked websites list, then over here, the pros are it's super simple to set up. And I'll be honest with you, there are probably 10 websites that kids go to that account for 90% of their lost time. So if you can block those 10 websites, you're going to fix most problems. Cons, if you want to get to 100%, you're never going to get there. Kids will always find a new website to go go goof off, and you will never be able to keep up with all of them. So this way right here, basically you're playing whack-a-mole. I have some great stories of students who have really found some inventive ways to get to video games and things that they should not be doing at school. So just know this is, in my opinion, it's the best way to go, the block websites list, but just know it's never going to be 100% perfect. But it can be like 90% perfect, which is better than nothing. So let's go ahead and look at how we create a blocked websites list. If I go in here and I'll say, hey, I'm going to make this, the same thing over here is a allowed websites list. I'm just going to say create. I'll give it a name. Maybe I'll call it period for English. I give it a description. I can make the color something fun, and it's nice to color code things sometimes. That way everything looks a little different. If I click on next, then it's super simple right here. I'm going to take a wild guess. Everyone's going to want to block YouTube. I'll just type in youtube.com, click search, and click add. And look at that. It gives me a bunch of other suggested websites that are like, hey, these are generally ones that people use to goof off, and they don't need to go to those generally. You can keep adding websites over here. Maybe I have kids who try to go to Instagram. That should be blocked by our district filter, but sometimes it's not. You can build your entire block list over here, and you can go in and you can add to this later on. Another very cool feature, you can limit the students' tabs. So like sometimes you have a kid who has 50,000 tabs open and it's hard for you as the teacher to know what they have open on their Chromebook. You can set a limit and just say, you know what? You only get 5 tabs, my friend. If you try and open up a 6th tab, it will not work. Another option that's very cool is you can do auto open tabs. Auto open tabs, if your students every single day, when they walk in the door, they need to go to the exact same website, you can just have it automatically open when you start the class and apply this scene. So if I say, hey, every day we start the day by reading the news because we want to be sad, then we'll just put it right here, say admin approved, and click update scene. Now, from this point moving forward, when I click save and I use this list right here in my class, all of these websites will be blocked. And this website will automatically open. I'm going to click save. Let's go up to my test classroom and let's try this out. So if I go back here, I've got a kid on YouTube and the other kid's on YouTube. I'm going to click on this thing that says no scene applied. When I click on that, I get all of these options. So I'm going to go ahead and click on period for English. When I click on that, let's take a look and see. Oh, look at that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Your YouTube tabs have closed. They are now blocked, and Google News automatically opened. So that's a very nice feature. You can change your scenes too. Maybe you have a day where you're like, you know what? It's kind of a free day. Have fun, kids. You can just click disable scene and give them all their control back. And YouTube will come right back. You can also make different block lists. So if you have different classes that need different things, then you can be like, hey, this is my Forest North block list. It's a very intense block list. It blocks just about every single website I could ever find that kids go to that they shouldn't be going to. You can change your scenes all throughout the class period and use different scenes for different classes. Once again, a very powerful and pretty simple tool to use. Now let's talk about a couple other features real quick. Timelines. Timelines are essentially a timeline of student activity. So if you've been out working with your class and you haven't really had that good of an opportunity to actively monitor while your students are on their Chromebooks, you can click on timelines and you can go back in time and see everything those students were doing throughout that class period. Especially when we have teachers who have students taking tests and sometimes a quiz, and maybe it's not in the lockdown browser for whatever reason, and teacher's like, I think this kid was opening up tabs to go look at maybe study notes or something. You can pull it up. You can pull up their timeline and go back and be like, oh, it's weird. I couldn't help but notice that during the quiz, you happen to keep opening a tab that went to Quizlet where all the study notes are. Isn't that weird? It's almost like you were cheating. So just know that timeline is there. And also that timeline, it's for all of your classes. If you go back here and you go into settings, we'll talk more about settings in a minute. But if you go back here and click on view sessions, you can go back to a previous session and check the timeline and see what they were doing on that day. So if you need some data for like, hey, is this kid actually paying attention in my class? You can go back to previous days and just look and say, hey, when they're on their Chromebook, what are they doing? So you can get historical data as well, which is super nice. Let's see, what else do we need to cover? Check-ins. So check-ins is a nice quick feature. It's just this tab right here on GoGuardian. If you click check-ins, all it's going to do is it lets you start a check-in, and it's just going to send this little thing to the students. How are you feeling today? Now, I will say this is actually a quick but kind of nice feature, because maybe if you have a student who every day you just do a quick check-in with them, how you doing? If you keep getting a kid with this little emoji and they're a real quiet kid, might be an indicator that there's something going on. And this feature, this check-in feature, pairs really well with your chat feature. So if you have chat turned on, you can chat with any student who is currently active in your GoGuardian class. So if this kid keeps telling me he's sad, hey, I couldn't help but notice you're looking a little glum. Everything okay? What's nice about that is, especially if you have shy kids who don't really like talking in class, this might be a way that you can kind of privately reach out to them, or vice versa. They can privately reach out to you. So that's a really cool feature, and it's something that's just super quick and easy to do. And if it helps one kid in your class for the school year, I'd say it's 100% worth it just to do those check-ins. Maybe not even every day, but just once a week. Okay, let's talk about some more advanced features and some problems that GoGuardian might have. So let's talk about advanced features, off-task alerts. So this was something that was in beta in GoGuardian for quite some time, and they've taken it out of beta. I will say they might need to let it cook a little longer, but it is what it is. So let's talk about off-task alerts. It's just this little thing up here. I think by default, when you first use GoGuardian, this will be set to off. You can turn it on. This gear icon right here helps the off-tasks alerts be a little more targeted to your class. So it'll ask you, what subject are your students learning right now? So So maybe I'm an English teacher. Okay, cool. It's going to ask me the sensitivity. So do I want the off-task alert to be lenient? Do I want it to be moderate? Or do I want it to be strict? Real just dialed in. So I generally leave it at moderate. Now, what the off-task alert is going to do is it's basically using machine learning to create a little helper because, hey, if you are not just staring at your GoGuardian screen all day, how do you know what the kids are doing? You can go back and look at the timeline. But this feature right here just gives you, it's almost like if it just, you had a little robot that was just watching your GoGuardian class and saying, hey, check it out. This kid's goofing off. And then it shows up right down here. It says off task students, time off task. It'll give you their name and it'll tell you how long they've been off task. It's just a little alert. It will tell you that it is not by any stretch of the imagination 100% accurate. If you see this, you as the teacher are going to need to do a little more investigating. I'll give you an example. If I take off this block list right here, and I'm teaching an English class, and I'm not actually going to do it, but let's say this student right here, they are using YouTube to watch some videos about maybe something like a book, or maybe a Shakespeare play or whatever, and, they're just doing their schoolwork on YouTube. GoGuardian is probably going to say, they're on YouTube, they're goofing off. It's going to immediately narc them out, whether it's actually on task or not. So don't rely on this 100%. Just think of this as basically a tattletale that's kind of giving you a heads up that something might be going on, but you're going to have to investigate a little further. Additional features. So these are just some kind of nice things. If I go back to my session, my classroom's up here, there is a settings icon and you can do some more powerful things in here. Before I say that, I will say, if you're like me, you probably like things being in order. So if I know my order of my school day, like this is my last class, you can drag these around and put them in order. So that way they're easy to spot. If you click on settings and go to edit class, you can do a few other things. You can change the description. This is especially important for classes that are made in TAC. So for example, this class right here, its name is PER-01, English Language Arts and Reading. That's such a not warm and fuzzy way to describe it. Maybe I want to add a description. Maybe I want to change the color so that way it stands out a little differently and I can kind of mentally remind myself, oh yeah, that's my yellow class, my orange class. You can also set up your default scene, which means that when you start the class, if you click this, that means every day when the class starts, it will use this scene right here. That's a really nice handy feature. If I click update classroom and then I go up here to this class, I'm going to end it real fast. And now I'm going to restart it. When I start it, oh wait, that wasn't the right one. So I'm not editing this out. It's staying in. There's no way. I've gone too far. Let's try it now. Let's add that block list to this test classroom. Okay. Let me go back and end this test classroom and then start it again. And look at that. I just started the class and it automatically applied that scene right there. I didn't have to do anything to get that started. You can still go in and disable the scene and turn it off, but just know it's a super easy feature to just turn it on every day. If you feel like you're going to need it every day, don't even have to think about it. You can also add a co-teacher, and I'll just show you very quickly how that works. Maybe if you have a paraprofessional or it's an inclusion classroom and you have staff that are kind of coming in and out of your classroom and you just want to be able to give them access to this tool as well for your classroom, you can just click add co-teachers, go in, click the green button over here. Don't type their name in right there. That doesn't work. I make that mistake every single time. Just click add teacher and then search for their email address. So let's add Jessica Thaling. There she is. And I can select her role. There's owner, teacher, and helper. Basically, in my opinion, I would not make anybody the owner of your class. Teacher is a pretty good compromise. It just gives them different levels of permission. And then you click add teacher, and now they have access to your GoGuardian classroom as well. So they can go in and block lists and change, block students, change scenes, do all that stuff. Last things to talk about with GoGuardian, just a couple kind of minor but important things. Thing number one, unfortunately, your GoGuardian classes that are made by ClassLink. See how that has the little icon right there? That what that basically means, I know it's the ClassLink icon. What that really means is it's making your classes based off what is in TAC. So if you have 8 classes in TAC, then you're going to see 8 boxes in pending that you're going to be able to click on to make them all active. If you have those classes where you have like a tag cluster inside of them, so it's technically one class of students staring at you in the classroom, but according to TAC, it's 2 different classrooms, then in GoGuardian, you are going to have 2 classrooms. GoGuardian, unfortunately, will not let us combine those. And so that puts us in a real problem. Because if you have, let's say, this is your main group of students and this is your tag group of students all in that same class period, your options are you either run both classes at the same time and you can have 2 tabs open to try to monitor them all, but it's not fun. Or if you prefer, you can always add a classroom. Oh, and before I forget, yeah, you can try to add students in this, but every night they're probably going to get erased. It's going to go back to whatever is in TAC. You can also make your own classroom. You can just click here, and that's what I did for my test classroom. You can just be like English, period 3, and give it a subject, and give a little icon if you want. Add classroom, and once you do that, you can go ahead and start adding all of your students to it manually. If you use the ones that GoGuardian got from your TAC roster, well, that's great because you don't have to do anything. Every time a student comes to your class or leaves your class for the school year, the next day, GoGuardian will be updated. If you decide to make your own classes, you have to go in and change everything every time a student joins or leaves your class for the school year. That's not fun. I'm sorry. I don't have any other great workarounds right now. If we get one, you will be the first to know because I know this is a very frustrating problem. The other last thing I just want to mention, and this is just kind of a freebie, if you have a very large class and it is very difficult to fit all of these boxes on your screen, hold down the control key and press the minus key at the same time, control minus, and you can make the little screen that has all the student blocks on it. So you make the blocks smaller so you can fit more of them on the screen. And so that's just kind of a nice feature. You can just go ahead and change that size. That way they all fit on one screen. I do know some teachers will put their GoGuardian up on the IFP, and that's a great way to make sure that kids rat each other out if they're off task. But if you have your little kind of laptop screen, you might need to hit that control minus key just to fit everything on there. So if you have any questions, or if, for example, you were really interested in the scenes and you said, boy, I couldn't help but notice that this F&E block list has a sharing button right here. Well, if you make a scene, you can share it with other people. And I've made a very big block list. It blocks a ton of websites. This is a real labor of love for me. I love making kids sad. So if you would like me to share this block list with you, or any other one, I'm more than happy to do it. You just send us an email and we will share this with you. And instead of you having to go reinvent the wheel and make your own block list, you could just use this one. If you have any questions or you need any help, please email Ms. Thaling and I, and we'll be more than happy to jump in and help you out, whether that's planning how to use it, or even if you're saying, hey, I'm going to use it for the first time in class, I would love for you just to be here just to kind of watch and help me out with it. Whatever you need, because we definitely want to make sure everybody is using this because it's a very valuable and powerful tool. Thank you so much. Have a great day.